Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Part 22, the Sig set, where meaning cannot be smoothed away. Remember the language we are learning. There is one field, phi, the holophase, the single cyclic movement from which all reality unfolds. When phi differentiates, that one movement generates its first derivatives, and with them, the three dimensions appear at once. Time as omega, space as k, and motion as v. From that first differentiation upward, every higher derivative is an echo of the one below it, an infinite ascent of finer and finer reflections of phi's original movement. And because the dimensions are born from that first echo, time, space, and motion also reverberate into infinity, carrying phi's unfolding into ever deeper rhythms, structures, and flows. Thus, the entire universe, every law, every pattern, every force, every particle, every phenomenon, is nothing but phi, endlessly echoing through its derivatives and their dimensional shadows. All of existence is the infinite echo of one field. Today, we listen to just one of those echoes. In our last journey, we discovered the digital core. We found that within the smooth, continuous ocean of phi, there exist stable, countable islands, topological charges like winding numbers. These integers give the universe its capacity for persistent identity, for things that can be named and counted. But these charges do not float freely. They are anchored. They are pinned to specific locations in the fabric of spacetime where something extraordinary happens. The smooth language of phi breaks down. The field becomes undefined, singular. Today, we map these anchor points. We explore the sigma set, the skeleton of unavoidable singularities where meaning cannot be smoothed away. This is not a failure of the language, it is its structural necessity. It is where the digital core physically lives. Today, we learn to see the universe not just as a flowing field, but as a field with a specific singular skeleton that gives it stable shape. Let us place this step in our episode 7 Ascent. We are deep in chapter 5, Topological Semantics. In part 20, we met the digital core, the discrete, countable charges. Now, in part 21, we locate the homes of these charges. The sigma set is the physical manifestation of that core. It is the next logical layer in understanding how topological semantics works. First the abstract charge, then the concrete defect that carries it. This brings us closer to a complete picture of how things are built from field. To understand the sigma set, start with a simple image. Imagine a perfectly smooth silk sheet draped over a hidden sculpture. The sheet represents our phi field, everywhere differentiable, everywhere described by beautiful, smooth derivatives. But underneath, the sculpture has sharp points, edges, and corners. At those precise places, if you try to keep the sheet perfectly smooth and flush against the sculpture, the sheet must pinch. It must develop a crease or a point where its orientation is undefined. You cannot smooth the sheet over that sharp tip without either tearing it or lifting it away. Those pinch points and sharp creases are like the sigma points. They are locations in space, or spacetime, where the requirement for phi to be both smooth and single-valued forces it to become singular. In the holophase language, phi is cyclic. Its value is like an angle that repeats every full turn. Picture a vortex in a fluid. Around the vortex, the flow circles endlessly. At the very center, however, the fluid velocity, which in our picture comes from the gradient of phi, would have to point in all directions at once to maintain that perfect swirling pattern. This is impossible for a well-defined, smooth vector field. So, at the exact center, we allow phi to be undefined. We declare, here, the smooth description pauses. Here is a singularity. The collection of all such singular points, lines, and surfaces in a given configuration of phi is the sigma set. It is the defect set. It is the skeleton of singular structure running through the otherwise smooth field. Linguistically, if the smooth derivatives are the flowing prose of reality, the sigma set is the punctuation, the full stops, exclamation marks, commas, and paragraph breaks. Places where continuity is intentionally broken so that higher order structure and meaning can emerge. In the Holophase language, the sigma set serves as structural punctuation and indexing for reality. Think of writing a complex mathematical paper. The smooth text is the flowing explanation, the equations, the derivations. But the meaning is often carried and organized by special symbols: the integral sign, the summation symbol, the boundary operator. These symbols point to special operations, to limits, to sums over discrete sets, to edges and boundaries. They are not part of the smooth algebra itself, they mark where something singular or global happens in the logic. The sigma set is the universe's own set of such symbols. It marks where a topological charge is located, like a subscript on a summation, where the smooth rules of derivative evolution must satisfy a boundary condition, and where something countable and persistent is anchored. Its role in the full tree is foundational. The sigma set is the anchor point for the entire topological branch. The digital charges, the winding numbers, are meaningless unless they are charges of something, and that something is a loop or surface that encloses a part of the sigma set. The skeleton gives those charges somewhere definite to live. Scientifically, the sigma set is the set of defects or singularities in the phi-field. These defects come in different dimensionalities, classified by what you would have to remove from space to make phi smooth again. There are point defects, which we can call sigma 0, isolated points where phi is singular. Encircling such a point with a loop gives a non-zero winding number. Physically, these appear as the core of a vortex in a superfluid, a hypothetical magnetic monopole, or a point-like topological soliton in certain field theories. The analogy is the drain in a bathtub. The water flows smoothly everywhere except at the drain hole itself, which is a singular point where the flow field is ill-defined in the usual coordinates. There are also line defects, sigma 1, which are lines or curves of singularity. Inserting such a line with a loop gives a non-zero winding number. These appear as vortex lines in superfluids and superconductors, like a tornado that stretches through the fluid, or as disclination lines in liquid crystals, where the molecular orientation is undefined along a curve, or as cosmic strings in some cosmological models. The analogy here is the core of a tornado. Along its entire length, there is a singular line around which the air circulates. And there are surface defects, sigma square, which are walls or surfaces where phi jumps discontinuously or where some underlying order parameter changes abruptly. These show up as domain walls in magnets, separating regions of opposite spin alignment, as grain boundaries in crystals, separating misaligned crystal domains, or as shock fronts in fluids where quantities like pressure and density change sharply. The analogy is a sheer cliff face in a landscape field. The height is smooth on each side, but at the cliff edge itself, the height function is effectively discontinuous. The sim set can be even more complex than isolated points, lines, or surfaces. It can form a network of lines, a tangle of points, or a patchwork of surfaces. The key is that at these locations, the derivatives of phi, omega, k, curvature, and higher orders, blow up, become undefined, or are no longer well behaved. They are the cusps, edges, and corners in the field's landscape. For a full mathematical classification of these defects, one uses tools from homotopy theory and differential topology, but conceptually, they are simply the places where the field cannot remain both smooth and single-valued and still satisfy the constraints imposed by its topology. The sim set is not a fixed, frozen sculpture. It is a dynamic skeleton living in space-time. In time, The defects in the sim set can be born, move, and die. A smooth region of phi can become unstable, and a pair of opposite charged point defects, for example a +1 and a -1 vortex, can nucleate from the smooth background. Their singular points suddenly appear in the sim set. As time goes on, a vortex line can wiggle, translate, stretch, or be dragged by flows in the medium. Its world line traces out a tube in space-time. Eventually, a +1 and a -1 point defect can meet and annihilate. Their singular points merge and vanish from the sim set, leaving behind the smooth region of phi. The skeleton evolves. Points appear, lines reconnect, surfaces fracture or merge. In space, at any fixed time, the sigma set is a spatial map of where the field is singular. It is the network of fault lines, cores, and boundaries in the spatial pattern of phi. Looking at this map tells you immediately where the interesting, non-smooth, particle-like features are. In motion, if you consider spacetime as one four-dimensional fabric, the sigma set becomes a collection of world lines for point defects, world sheets for line defects, and world volumes for surface defects. The intersection of these world objects with a slice of constant time gives you the spatial sigma set at that instant. The motion of defects is encoded in the curvature and twisting of these world objects. When two world lines meet and join, you see the collision and annihilation of defects. When one world line branches, you see a creation event. Thus, the sigma set provides a complete spatio-temporal address book for all the singular, non-smooth features in the history of the phi field. In our growing map of the language, the sigma set occupies a critical position. It is the concrete geometric realization of the abstract topological branch. It is the interface between the smooth derivative-based description and the discrete charge-based description. The derivatives, the smooth flesh, are defined everywhere except on sigma. The topological charges, the digital bones, are defined by integrating around sigma. Think of the master tree as a living being. The temporal, spatial, and mixed towers are its muscular, nervous, and circulatory systems, continuously processing change and structure. The topological charges are its genetic code, the discrete information content of its configuration. The sigma set is the skeletal system, the hard physical structure that gives specific form and location to that genetic information and upon which the muscles and flows act. Even though the sigma set is built from singularities, it exerts a deep influence on the smooth branches. All the derivative towers, time, space, and mixed, are defined and smooth only away from sigma. As you approach a point in sigma, these derivatives typically become very large, diverge, or become discontinuous. The sigma set acts as a source or boundary condition for the derivative fields. The smooth fields must arrange themselves to heal around the singularity in a specific way dictated by the topological charge anchored there. The equations of motion for phi, which live in the mixed tower, determine how sigma evolves. The forces on defects, their mobility, their tendency to collide or spread, and their annihilation rates are all governed by mixed derivative terms in the energy or action. The motion of sigma is the dynamics of the skeleton. Defects in sigma also interact strongly with wave semantics. A defect scatters waves. When a wave propagates through the phi field, its phase and amplitude are influenced by the presence of singularities. The scattering pattern of the wave encodes information about the topological charge of the defect. This is like using sonar to map the seafloor. The echoes reveal the shape of the underwater terrain. In a similar way, interference and diffraction patterns can reveal the hidden structure of sigma. And the relationship with the digital core is the most direct of all. Each connected component of the sigma set is associated with one or more topological charges. The charge is a global property of the singularity, not a local number painted at a point, but there is no charge without a corresponding piece of sigma to anchor it. Semantically, the sigma set provides the where for the what introduced by the digital core. The digital core gave us the discrete labels, +1, -1, 2, and so on. The sigma set tells us where those labels are currently instantiated. It answers, where is that +1 vortex right now? Where did it come from? Where is it going? This allows the holophase language to express localization. Identity tied to a region of space. Event. A point in spacetime where sigma changes, such as a creation or annihilation of defects. Trajectory. The path of sigma through spacetime. And interaction. Places where pieces of sigma approach, meet, and transform. In the full language, it is the syntax of occurrence. It provides the stage directions for the nouns. Enter here, exit there, collide at this point, depart along that path. It turns a list of characters with labels into a narrative of their world lines. The stability of the sigma set comes from its topological character. A simple, isolated defect in sigma, like a single vortex in an infinite medium, can be topologically stable. It cannot be smoothed away without a major, energetic, global event in the field. Its location may drift under flows or forces, but the singular point itself persists. Some defects are metastable rather than strictly topologically protected. For example, a dislocation in a crystal that is stuck in an energy minimum because of impurities. But when a defect is truly topological, its presence is guaranteed by the winding structure of the field, not just by energetic convenience. At the same time, the skeleton is highly variable. The sigma set can be simple and static, like a few pinned vortices in a very clean superconductor. It can be complex and static, like a tangled but frozen web of domain walls in a ferromagnet cooled extremely slowly. Or it can be dynamic and chaotic, like the constantly forming, stretching, reconnecting vortex tangle in turbulent superfluid flow or in a magnetized plasma. The shape, connectivity, and complexity of sigma is one of the richest sources of structure in the universe. The SIB set is also testable and falsifiable. It is directly observable in many systems. This is not a metaphysical flourish. It is an empirical claim. We can use imaging techniques to map the field in question and look for singularities. In superfluids and Bose-Einstein condensates, interferometry and direct imaging of ultra-cold atomic gases allow us to see dark, singular spots of vortex cores and to track their motion. The prediction is that these are point-like singularities around which the phase winds by an exact integer multiple of 2 pi. In liquid crystals, polarized light microscopy reveals the dark brushes and meeting points that represent point and line defects. Their arrangement matches the predicted sigma set for the molecular orientation field. In superconductors, magnetic force microscopy or scanning squid microscopy can map the magnetic flux emerging from individual abrikoso vortices, each a line defect where the superconducting order parameter vanishes. In optical fields, we can create singular light beams, optical vortices, and measure their phase structure, detecting the points where the intensity drops to zero and the phase is undefined. A clear falsification would be a system that we claim is described by a cyclic phi-like field, where quantized charges are measured, for example, quantized circulation or flux. But no corresponding singularities can ever be found or imaged, even in principle. If the charge exists but has no localized anchor in sigma, the model must be questioned. Instead, again and again, experiments show that whenever there is topological quantization, there is some corresponding structure in the sigma set. The C set appears across nature as the visible scar tissue of the universe, the places where its smooth fabric has been knotted, folded, or torn. In physics and cosmology, hypothetical cosmic strings are line defects in fields that might have formed in the early universe. If they exist, they are immense sigma-1 objects, and their gravitational signatures might still be detectable. At the center of a black hole, our current theories predict a space-time singularity. While the full truth will require a quantum theory of gravity, we can think of this as an extreme member of the sigma set, a place where the metric field, our geometric version of phi for spacetime, becomes undefined. Crack tips in solids are line defects in the displacement field of the crystal lattice. The strain, a derivative of displacement, becomes extremely large near these tips, and earthquakes and fractures propagate from such singular points and lines. In chemistry, dislocations in crystals are classic line defects, sigma 1, in the perfect atomic lattice. They are where the smooth periodic order of the crystal is disrupted. Their presence controls the material's strength and plasticity, and they are literally visible in electron microscopy as discontinuities in the lattice. Reaction fronts in some propagating chemical waves, like certain flames or reaction diffusion systems, behave as surface defects, sigma square, where concentration fields change sharply over a thin region. In biology, the mitotic spindle during cell division is organized around centrosomes, or poles, that act like point defects, sigma 0, in the microtubule field. Microtubules radiate from these singular points, and the chromosomes align and separate along lines defined by this underlying sigma set. In developmental pattern formation, the spots of a leopard or the stripes of a fish arise from reaction diffusion processes. The boundaries between different fates, make pigment versus do not make pigment, can be viewed as lines or surfaces in an effective field, a kind of biological sigma set, marking transitions in cell behavior. In geology, fault lines are surface defects, sigma squared, in the continuous displacement field of the Earth's crust. The strain is concentrated and often effectively singular at the fault, leading to earthquakes when the fault suddenly slips. These faults divide regions of the crust into domains that can shift relative to one another. The idea of singularity and skeleton also appears in human and abstract life. In consciousness, a sudden eureka moment or insight can feel like a singular event in the smooth flow of thought. A mental sigma 0 point where previous diffused associations converge into a new, discrete understanding. After that moment, entirely new lines of thinking branch out. Traumatic memories can behave like defects in the autobiographical field. Localized, sharply defined regions around which thoughts and emotions circulate and sometimes blow up into intense reactions. In history and society, ground zero events like a decisive battle, a major revolution, an assassination, or the signing of a transformative treaty become historical singularities. There are points in time and space where the trajectory of a nation or humanity bends sharply. People speak of before and after such events. They are temporal single points that everything else references. Borders and frontiers act as social surface defects, sigma square. A heavily fortified border is a line where the smooth gradients of culture, law, and economy suddenly change. The lived experience on one side is different from the other, and crossing the boundary feels like a kind of discontinuity. In economics, financial crashes are temporal singularities in economic spacetime. On the crash day, derivatives of price indices, their velocities and accelerations, can become effectively huge. That date becomes a reference point from which new regulations, narratives, and long-term trends emerge. The headquarters of a major corporation is like a point defect in the economic landscape, a place from which capital, instructions, and influence radiate and to which they converge. In knowledge and language, the invention of concepts like zero or calculus were conceptual singularities. Before them, the field of mathematics had one topology. After them, entirely new branches were possible. They are sigma 0 points in the history of ideas. The first use of a powerful symbol or metaphor, like the peace symbol or the phrase Iron Curtain, creates a point in cultural space that condenses many meanings and becomes a reference singularity in collective understanding. You can now begin to map the singular skeleton of the world around you. Look for centers of circulation. a whirlpool in water, a spiral galaxy in an image, a roundabout in traffic. The center, the eye of the storm, the galactic core, the island in the traffic circle, is a candidate point in the sigma set. Things flow around it. Identify dividing lines. A coastline, a fence between properties, a sharp edge where two materials meet. These are candidate lines or surfaces in the sigma set where one state gives way to another. Notice pivot points in narratives, a crucial decision, discovery, or disaster that everything else hinges on. That is like a temporal sigma zero point in the narrative field. Feel conceptual boundaries in your own thinking, places where your understanding becomes fuzzy or where two ideas sharply clash. That boundary is a kind of personal, cognitive sigma set in your own mental phi-field. A simple practice is to look at a tree. See the trunk as a central line, analogous to a sigma-1 defect, from which branches radiate. See the tips of the branches and the ends of the roots as point-like ends of growth, reminiscent of sigma-0 locations where something starts or stops. See the surface of each leaf as a thin boundary interface, like a sigma-squared surface, between the interior of the plant and the surrounding air. You are visually parsing the tree's sigma set, its singular skeleton of growth, branching, and interface. Through this, you are learning that the world is not just a smooth continuum. It is a continuum with a specific, singular structure. And that structure is where much of the action is. We return, as always, to the one field. The sigma set, the skeleton of singularities, is still just a feature of phi's configuration. It is not an alien addition. It is the necessary consequence of phi being a cyclic field that tries to be single-valued over spaces in which you can draw loops and surfaces. The singularities are where the seams appear when you try to flatten a cyclic map onto a simple domain. This understanding completes a major step in our episode 7 picture. We have now fully explored the topological semantics branch. We have the digital core, the charges, the what, and we have the sigma set, the singularities, the where. Together, they explain how persistent, localized things can exist within the holistic, flowing phi field. The skeleton, sigma, gives them location. The topological charge gives them type and stability. This completes a foundational layer of the Holophase language. We have moved from smooth dynamics to discrete stability, and we have located that stability in the very fabric of the field itself. As we conclude our mapping of the sigma set, appreciate its necessity. For a rich cyclic field like phi to exist in our world, it must have singularities. These are not flaws, they are features. They are the knots that keep the tapestry from unraveling into featureless smoothness. They are the points where the field gathers itself into something countable, locatable, and persistent. This skeleton is the universe's way of writing in bold and underlining. It is the punctuation that gives paragraphs and chapters to the prose of derivatives. Without it, there would be flow but no things, change but no events, a song but no distinct notes. In our next part, we will see how these singularities can interact in more complex ways. We will explore part 22, braids, links, and higher topological structures, where the world lines of defects weave around each other, creating an even richer vocabulary of stable forms, the molecules built from the atoms of topological charges. But for now, see the world as this structured field. See the vortices, the boundaries, the centers, the fronts. They are the sigma set. They are the singular, unsmoothable points where meaning is anchored, where the digital soul of the universe touches its analog body. You live in a world with a skeleton, and you are part of it. Peace be upon you, until part 22.